JP Shadrick, Mike Dempsey, and Brian Sexton have all the news and information to get you ready for today's game.
Into the end zone, touchdown!
The Publix Tailgate Show is brought to you by Baptist Health, Farah and Farah, Yucatan Guacamole, and by Everbank. The Publix Tailgate Show starts right now.
Well, hello and good afternoon from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, the official home of the NFL in the UK, as was announced a few weeks ago. And good morning to all of you back in Florida. I'm Brian Sexton. Mike Dempsey is with me this morning. Well, this morning for him, from the Hyundai Studios at Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville. And we welcome you to the first hour of the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. The Bills and Jaguars coming up in the early window again this week. Kickoff set for just after 9:30 Eastern time. Doing a little bit of quick math. It's really early for you there. It's what, 6:30, Mike?
Nah, it's no big deal. No big deal.
Up and at it.
Love it early. You know, that means we're done early, Brian. With a Jaguar victory in hand like last week, everybody's in a good mood and we get the rest of Sunday off. That's the plan.
And let's run through just a couple of headlines before we get into the stories of the week and hear from players and coaches. This Bills team that comes in here today might be number one. I mean, they might be the best team in the league, right?
They might be. I would probably give that to San Francisco right now, but the Bills over the last 3 weeks are playing as well as anybody and certainly dismantled the team that looked unstoppable just a week prior. Miami hung 70 on Denver, and Buffalo held them to 20, put 48 up of their own, and you really stake that claim to still being the top team in the AFC East and certainly among the best teams in the league.
You know, a big one today for the Jaguars is the return of number 74, Big Cam Robinson, was on the field. Mike, I watched him all week long when practice was open, and he moved effortlessly. He looked in better physical condition. Doug Peterson said he knows what it takes and knew when he had to be ready. It's a big storyline today for the Jaguars because of how he impacts the offensive line at two positions.
Right. It's a huge storyline. It's more so because of how it impacts the left guard position, I believe, Brian, because Walker Little was, by acclaim, the best offensive lineman the Jags had in the first month of the season. So he moves inside, and you're hoping to get better play where you've already had Ben Barch and Tyler Shatley start games. The combination of Robinson next to Little, and not just the technical ability of Cam Robinson, Brian, as we know, the attitude that he brings to that offensive line probably could use a little bit more of that these days.
You bet. He's a top competitor. All right, now let's get to the top stories, and we'll start right out of the gate, with Doug Peterson, who understands the challenge this Bills team presents and was asked if this is a measuring stick game.
Absolutely. This is a great football team. Great quarterback, obviously, well coached. You know, obviously the fingerprints of Coach McDermott on this defense and what they're doing. So, yeah, it's a challenge for us. And, you know, it's something that we can learn maybe from that Chiefs game. Preparation, hard work, all of that going into this week, and you know, just know that our guys will be, you know, they'll be ready, you know, for Sunday, and look forward to the opportunity.
Well, like you said, Brian, they're one of the best teams in the league, right? And, you know, it is somewhat of a measuring stick game, but it's so funny how perception can change quickly in the NFL. The Jags, they're terrible after a 1-2 start. If they win this game today, then all of a sudden they're going to be looked at vastly differently going forward.
Big game, and Trevor Lawrence, of course, understands the challenge in front of them and what's at stake with one of the marquee teams in the league, and he was asked about it.
You know, nothing changes. There's not necessarily any more edge for us or for myself because we're playing the Bills. I mean, every game is big. I think it is big given that they are another AFC team. You know, this is a team where it's big to try to win these games. Same like we were playing the Chiefs week 2, an AFC team that's been one of the top teams. I think these are big games, but really, especially this early in the season, every game is a big game, no matter if it's NFC, AFC, if it's a division game. You're trying to get as many wins as possible to put you in a good position at the end of the season. So, and this will do that for sure. And obviously, it's an AFC game. It's a big one.
Yeah, that point by Trevor, Brian, they're all big right now because you've got to put yourself in the playoff position to worry about seeding, right? And this could be a game that impacts seeding head-to-head, but you got to win enough games to get there and have it matter. So from that standpoint, it's just, you know, it didn't really matter who's on the schedule this week. The Jags just need another victory.
You know, Mike, a year ago, this conversation, stacking wins and putting yourself in playoff positions, would have seemed preposterous in early October. And yet, a year later now, a young football team who's been through a run to the playoffs is being asked about seeding. That's a big jump in 1 year for a football team.
Well, it is, but, it came with the expectations of they're going to carry over what they did in the second half of the year, and it looked like, Trevor Lawrence and the Jags are the ascendant team in the division. Now, some of these teams that we thought would not be as good have gotten off to better starts, and everyone's all tied at 2-2. So, I think it's time to kind of hit the pause button on all that, and I get the question, because of what the expectations were coming into the year, Brian, but again, at this point, it doesn't look like if the Jags do win the AFC South, it's going to be a runaway, so I'm more concerned with just stacking some wins than I am about who they come against.
Yeah, the AFC South race looks really interesting all of a sudden, and with the Jaguars returning home next week to play the Colts, we'll be talking about another big game in all likelihood. A guy who understands a team's development is the Jaguars special teams coordinator, Heath Farwell. You'll recall, because you're that guy, that he was with the Buffalo Bills as they were making their run up the ladder, chasing Kansas City, and all the big Sunday night, Monday night playoff caliber games played between those two teams. And he watched as the Bills sort of rose to the challenge. They never got over the top with Kansas City, but they played really well. And in fact, in 2021, they beat the Chiefs in Kansas City in prime time before they came to Jacksonville and lost 9-6. So, that up and down nature of a team as it grows. And I asked Heath this week, you've been around these teams, is this one big game ready?
I think that's the best part about games like this. All these games prepare you down the stretch come January. So just to feel that adrenaline, a little bit of nervousness about you, the little gut feeling to you, pregame, all those little rituals, kind of the fans, the crowd. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it cool. But all that stuff helps us. And so, doing those couple Kansas City games the last couple years, I think that's also prepared us. This is another one. This is another great game, great matchup. Come playoff time, we're going to need these games just for experience. So I think our guys are ready. They're excited about it. We've had a good week of practice so far. Like I said, that's the challenge of it. Let's see what we can do in a good matchup against a very good team.
Oh, like Coach Farwell said there, I think they're ready to play this week. I don't think there'll be any excuses, but I think he leaned more into, Brian, that this game is the kind of game that will help them get big game ready. Every coaching staff wants to talk about how every year is different, right? Even though a lot of the Jaguar players are back and a lot of those guys that had that experience down the stretch last year are carrying that into 2023, this is a game for this particular group that is going to tell you what it's like to compete at one of the higher levels in the National Football League.
But what I'm really interested in, Mike, is to get a feel for this team. Kansas City comes in week 2, right? It's the home opener. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. You're coming off of a win. And the word was they had a bad week of practice. And then, of course, they didn't play very well on offense in particular. Then the next week, they've got a team they should beat coming in Houston. And they have a great week of practice. And they have an absolutely horrible performance. All those mistakes, all of them added up. All of them shot them in the foot. So, they come over last week. It feels like this team kind of has their legs underneath them. But this is, we talked about a measuring stick game. This is a football team that needs to find out what it takes to win.
Well, yeah, certainly it does. And, whether they're prepared or not today, though, I don't know if it matters if the offensive line isn't up to the challenge of Buffalo's pass rush. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got 16 sacks in 4 games. And I could be mentally ready to play, Brian, but I'm not good enough to play. You know what I mean? So, if you just can't match up, now it's going to help that Greg Rousseau is out and Von Miller is playing his first game this season after returning from injury, but the Bills' pass rush has been fearsome, and the Jags' offensive line has been inconsistent, let's say, to this point in the season.
It sure has. And it's shown up in key areas, Mike. When you look at Buffalo, and, of course, they've won the last 3 games they've played by an average score of 41-8. So they're not showing a whole lot of weakness, but there's 2 areas where they look really, really good. The first of which is the red zone. They've been there 19 times in 4 games. They've scored 13 touchdowns and 5 field goals. They have performed at a very high level. The flip side is the Jaguars in 4 games have only been in the red zone 9 times. They've got 4 touchdowns, 3 field goals, and 2 where they didn't get any points at all. The disparity there is glaring, but the next number is the one I think that tells the story. The Bills are converting on 3rd down at 51%. That is elite. That is Kansas City. That is the heyday of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, the elite offenses that would convert half of the time when they were on the field on third down. The Jaguars are at only 31%. And Press Taylor knew the question was coming. He knew he couldn't avoid this when he stepped in front of the media on Thursday. I asked him, what do you do? Are you looking at doing what you do better, or are you looking at doing something completely different, getting creative to improve that number so you can stay on the field?
There's always a combination of those sort of factors, of doing what we do, doing or things we know really well, inside and out, but also things that put our guys in a position to do what they do well, but also attack a defense and how they want to play the certain situation, because every defense is different. So every game plan changes a little bit, and there's sort of a give and take of just do what we do, attack what they do, put everybody in the best position. So kind of a case by case.
Yeah, I think mostly it's execution, though, Brian, right? I mean, you got to give Trevor Lawrence enough time to get through his progressions. He's got to be accurate down in the red zone, and then his receivers need to catch the football. And there have been issues on all of those fronts at different times. I'm not saying in equal measure, but there have been a lot of different things that have contributed to it, and the Jags have not been blowing people off the ball in short yardage either. So when you're talking about converting some of those fourth downs or just those goal line opportunities, it's tough sledding at times for the Jags, and I feel like when they feel like they can't just punch it in, that's when they try to get a little bit creative and gotten themselves in trouble.
Well, it feels like first down has to be successful, right? Or second down has to be successful, because that third down number almost creates anxiety. I know it does in the fan base, but it does out there on the field too, because the number has been so bad. Now, good news for the Jaguars is they'll get Zay Jones back on the field today, and I asked him about his return. He said his teammates are excited he's back, just like he is. And, the receiving group, they all are individuals. They're not lined up next to each other. But I asked him about the continuity of it and if his return gives that group an element that's been missing.
There is the stigma of receivers and their personalities across, the history of our league. But I really believe that we do have a cohesive unit. I believe that we all feed off of each other and we all support each other. And I know for a fact that I'm celebrating Christian and Calvin just as much as myself. Which, in reality, is not normal, but that's just, I think, the type of people that we are. And I ultimately understand the better that they do, the better it could help me. So I'm cheering and rooting for everyone to win in my room.
That's a nice sentiment, and I do believe it's genuine with this team, but I love the fact that Zay Jones is honest. That's not normal, right? Guys want their numbers because that's how they ultimately get paid in the NFL, but I think all these guys now, except for Ridley's kind of playing for his next contract, but Zay's got good money. Christian Kirk has his, and they know where they fit in the pecking order, Brian. So I think in that circumstance, it's easier to be the guy that says, I don't really care who gets the glory as long as we're putting points on the board.
I think the quarterback is really excited about having Zay back on the field. And I could go through every game he's played and find a critical third down where he made a big catch. The biggest one to me is that Cowboys game when they were driving at the end to kick the game-tying field goal and send the game into overtime. Trevor's rolling out to his left, and there's defenders in his face, and he puts the ball right between a defender's arms, and there's Zay, right where the quarterback knew he would be. There's a trust level, and there's something about Zay Jones working with the quarterback that Trevor really feels comfortable with. I think that could be a big, big difference in the game today.
Hope that's the case, man. It's great to have all the weapons back, and, it's easy to overlook how well Zay played in the offseason, and I said it many times, if you didn't have Calvin Ridley and the storyline around him and you just watched practice this offseason, you would have thought Zay Jones was somebody's number one receiver. That's how well he played, so to get him back is not insignificant.
Well, something that was said last week was that quarterback wants to play the game where there are no numbers and no names. He just wants to throw the ball to the open receiver. And Zay Jones is a guy who lets things flow, so perhaps today that number will go up. Again, 31% on the season. Well, that's a problem. They've got to get that one better. There's more sound from the week coming up in the second hour of the Publix Tailgate Show, and that's at 7:30 Eastern Time. And we have much, much more to come here on the Publix Tailgate Show, including
every combination that we could have, we've covered at some point in the last 2 years. So I think there will be some continuity there.
That's Tyler Shatley talking about however they move things around on the offensive line today. He believes they'll be able to handle the challenge. He's this week's Baptist Health player interview. Plus, CBS Sports senior writer Pete Prisco. The Jaguars and Bills are less than 3 hours away. And you're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguars sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguars sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguars sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
The creamiest, dreamiest, soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy. For refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. The milkshakes and the sundaes and the cones are such a treat. Look out for the ice cream stand, enjoy it from your seat. The creamiest, dreamiest, soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy. For refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. S-O-F-T-E-E, Mr. Softy.
Hello, I'm Dan Fields. If you're in the market for a full-size 8-passenger SUV, look no further than the Defender 130. And with the Defender 90, the 110, and this 130, there's luxury in the right size for everyone. Right, Sammy?
Plus, when you buy or lease from Land Rover Jacksonville, you'll become a member of the Fields Amenities Program with complimentary loaners, car washes, our cafe, and much more, all at no charge.
You say there's nothing quite like the feel of the open road when you ride a motorcycle. You know it takes concentration, knowledge, and skills beyond those required to drive a car. Ride Smart Florida would like to take this opportunity to remind you to enjoy the road, but to always ride smart. S-M-A-R-T. Say no to drinking and riding. Make yourself more visible to motorists. Always wear your helmet. Ride in control. Train regularly and get endorsed. Visit RideSmartFlorida.com for more details. Do you ride smart? This message is provided by the Florida Department of Transportation.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, we'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community-owned utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Paid for by FDOT.
And welcome back to the Publix Tailgate Show. Brian Sexton from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. Mike Dempsey is back at the Hyundai Studios in Jacksonville. Jaguars and Bills coming your way. Kickoff at 2:30 in London, 9:30 in Jacksonville. The early window for the second straight week. This is the first time, if you're not aware, that the Jaguars or any team has played in London on consecutive weeks, and that's something that the league is, and we'll hear from the Commissioner Roger Goodell in a couple of hours, the league is very interested in how this process will work, Mike. And the Jaguars were very interested in how they'd play when they get over to London, something you visited with CBS Sports senior writer Pete Prisco about.
Yeah, obviously, Brian, the back-to-back games, and, the Jags able to settle in after a victory, which was nice. Trevor Lawrence talked about that in the postgame last week. You can kind of walk around with your chest puffed out a little bit, and just started off with Pete, just with a quick look back on how important it was that the Jags evened their record at 2-2 last week.
We had to come out of London at bare minimum 1-2. I mean, 1-1. I mean, you had to do that. You couldn't go there and lose both games. So I think getting the first one was important for them, and they actually looked really good on defense. You got pressure with the quarterback and on the quarterback, and I think that's a good step for the future.
Yeah, Pete, 77 yards allowed in the first half. It was a spectacular defensive performance for a lot of that game. They gave away a couple of big plays in the second half, but nothing crazy. How surprised are you, and I guess pleased as well, that the Jags defense is exceeding early season expectations?
Yeah, and I think, again, we always go back to the pass rush, but that's been a big problem for this team for a long time. And seeing Josh Allen getting 3 sacks and pressure on the quarterback, and even Trayvon Walker got one. Really, it wasn't a win up the field and, dominate the quarterback kind of sack, but he got one. And that's a good sign for them going forward. They have to be good against, quarterbacks who could throw the football in this league. That's what it's all about. It's throw it and sack the quarterback. And if they can sack the quarterback, that's important.
Well, they tried to run it offensively last week, and Travis Etienne was bottled up. Do you think right now teams are going to make sure that that's the first thing they stop, or are they still coming into these games thinking Trevor Lawrence is the most dangerous weapon threatening their defense?
I go back to something I said last week. The offensive line has been a concern with play calling. It's been a concern with Trevor. He's been sped up, and I don't think he's been truly comfortable yet, and we haven't seen the best of him. This is one of those situations where you have to fortify the offensive line. If the offensive line starts playing better, and they were a little bit better last week, if they start playing better, then you'll see Trevor Lawrence open up the passing game and take those shots down the field.
Pete, maybe we'll see Zay Jones on the field today and Jamal Agnew on the field today. We don't know, but how much do the Jags need all hands on deck when you consider the opponent they're facing and how well Buffalo's playing right now?
Yeah, and Buffalo's one of those teams that plays a lot of zone defense, so you got to be smart. And I go back to a couple weeks ago when they played, the Texans. They played a lot of zone defense, and they weren't smart. They didn't sit down in zones. They ran right into guys. You got to be, smart. Sit in those little soft areas. Make it easy on Trevor Lawrence, but getting anybody back, particularly Zay Jones. I mean, he's the one guy that can take the top off and go down the field along with Ridley, and I think that's important, particularly if you do get some, man-to-man situations where you can take advantage of them.
But do the Jags need to continue to lean on Travis Etienne, at least in terms of touches early in the football game? And Buffalo's got 16 sacks in 4 games. We know that pass rush is pretty prolific. Ed Oliver's having a career year to this point in the middle of that defensive line. How important is it for the Jags to at least be committed to trying to run the football?
Well, you have to run it. I mean, look, if you get one-dimensional against a defense like that, they can tear you up. I mean, we saw what they did to Sam Howell a couple of weeks ago, and, they had 4 sacks at Tua, and he hadn't been getting hit at all. So, you have to be able to run the ball, and I like what I've seen from Etienne. They have to get him going early in the game. That'll help open up the deep shots down the field.
The Jags really stifled this Buffalo offense when they played them a couple of years ago, but every game is different, Pete. They're high-flying right now. Other than getting pressure on Josh Allen, what's the key defensively today?
Be sound in your coverages. Don't have the busts. When he scrambles and gets outside, you got to be plastered on your guy. Make sure you don't allow him to get free, because that's where the big plays come from. And when the big plays come, that's demoralizing to a defense. So be sound in your rush lanes, but more than that, on the back end, be sound covering and staying plastered to your guy.
All right, what's your prediction for the game, Pete?
I like the Bills to win the game. I just think this is a tough ask. That team is playing at such a high level, Mike, that I think it's a tough ask for the Jaguars.
Well, Brian, you talked about third down. That's Josh Allen getting outside the pocket with that run-pass option, and he'll flick it right down the field to Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, or whomever, and make those big plays. Like Pete said, can't have those coverage busts today for the Jags.
No, and with a guy like that, it's not just him getting outside the pocket and flicking the ball. It's him converting with his legs.
No doubt.
He's not scared to do it, and he's not scared to put his shoulder down into somebody and get over the top. Appreciate that interview with Pete. Time now, Mike, for our player interview presented by Baptist Health and the Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute, the official sports medicine provider of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tyler Shatley is the ultimate break glass in case of emergency. A guy who can either play guard or center or come in when you need him or stick in the starting lineup. The former undrafted rookie free agent is the longest tenured Jaguar. He's also the most international now of all NFL players.
Yeah, it means a lot, obviously. What a blessing, to be in the same place for this long, to be healthy this long. There's a lot of factors outside of just me, that got me here. So it's very thankful to have this opportunity.
What's this like, this 10 days away from home, obviously wife and kids, but with your guys? I mean, there's a balance there, isn't there?
Like you said, balance. I mean, it's hard being away from the wife and kids, and then obviously the time difference makes it hard to. It kind of feels like every time I call, the kids are awake, and so I'm trying to talk to my wife and talk to the kids all at the same time. But like you said, I do get more time with the guys that I usually wouldn't get because, usually I'm heading straight home and trying to, help out with bath, bedtime, all the things, and it's great. But it's cool to now really get to spend some time with the guys that don't usually get.
And how about this setting? I mean, spectacular. The rolling hills of the English countryside. When you're a football player at Clemson or in Hickory, North Carolina, you don't really think it's going to take you here. Football really has done amazing things, hasn't it?
It sure has. Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's awesome. It is. It's nice to every once in a while just kind of take a step back and, like you said, I mean, I got some time now and kind of look around like, man, like, yeah. Well, I never thought I was playing football in, London, going on my 9th time over here. So really cool to get to do this and, like you said, kind of take a step back and look at it and appreciate what it is.
You guys have been a little thin since training camp with some injuries. Cam's back this week. That gives you a lot of different moving pieces. How's the continuity in the room if they make changes to the lineup?
I think the continuity will be good. If you kind of look around, obviously Cam and I played together last year. Barch and Cam played together last year. Walker and I played together last year. Then Cam and Walker played in Detroit, I believe it was, in the preseason. So I think every combination that we could have, we've covered at some point in the last 2 years. So I think there will be some continuity there. Obviously there will be some first game, just like, okay, like let's, kind of figure it out again. Just like, because, live bullets are a little bit different, but it feels good to know that we've had these reps before.
The offensive line always gets a lot of criticism when things aren't running efficiently. How do you guys look at where you're at a month into the season? What do you think you guys can do better to get this offense humming along?
Well, I think we can just continue to try to keep Trevor clean, keep the running backs, give them better, help them with the better reads, better, open up some space for the guys to run. And obviously there's always things to improve on. Even when we are humming, even when we were humming last year, there are still things to improve on. There's always things to improve on. And that's one of the things we try to do in the offensive line is just stay within our bubble. You know what I'm saying? We're like, control what we can control. We can't control what people are going to say. People, like you said, people are going to say the first people that are going to get criticized is mostly the offensive line when things don't go accordingly. So, and we know that, and I mean, we wouldn't have any other way.
You get a Bills team that's coming in, they're hot, right? They're scoring 41 points a game. They're holding their opponent to 8. They seem like the class of the AFC. Do you look at that as a measuring stick game, or is it just another game to you guys?
That's one thing we've talked about before and all year, really. It's just, every week is a nameless, faceless opponent. If you start, looking at stats and stuff, we want to prepare the same every single week. If you're playing up or down to certain opponents, then you're missing it, man. So we're trying to prepare the same way we do every single week and just go out there and try to get better every game.
Tell me about your relationship with the quarterback. You're both Clemson alum. I think you both go to the same church, if I'm not mistaken, and I think you guys also share an agent. So it seems like you're a calming influence on the young player. Even though he's a great player, it seems like he responds well to you. Do you feel that way? Do you have a sense of responsibility as a former Tiger to help him out?
Well, yeah, obviously want to help him out no matter where he played. But I do feel, we do have a good connection. And Trevor's an easy guy to get along with. He's a great teammate. I think he gets along well with all the guys. And then obviously it helps that I'm the old head in the room. And so, but I think we do have a good relationship, and yeah, we think, obviously I think we have similar personalities, and then, like I said, like going to the same school, same agent. So I think that is more a reflection of our similarities and personalities.
Final thought then. You mentioned you're the old guy in the room. I remember when you were the undrafted rookie, and here you are, all those draft picks, all come and gone, and here you are. How satisfying does it feel to you to be the old guy in the room? And you seem to have the perfect personality for all these young guys to share a little wisdom.
I love it, man. I love being the old guy in the room, just getting to kind of mentor the guys, and not just football. Being the guy, Sheriff's got 3 kids too, and I feel like he's another guy that we together can kind of talk to the young guys, because it's funny looking and just watching the guys going through what I feel like, or each stage of life. I see guys that are that are dating, getting ready, or getting engaged, guys that are married and no kids yet, guys that are getting ready to have kids. And so it's cool to get to see that and be like, yeah, man, I had that same thought. I've had that same conversation with my wife. I've had that same conversation with my kids, and it's a good chance too to be like, hey, I bumped my head there. Let me help you know where to duck. You know what I'm saying? Let me show you where these are not the battles you want to win, and this is a battle you might want to win. So it's cool, and I really do enjoy that role. It just gives me kind of more purpose than just football.
Best of luck today.
Appreciate it.
Well, it appears that Shadley's going back to the bench today with Cam Robinson's return and Walker Little sliding inside, but he'll be there if they need him on the field or in the locker room. He really is a great story, having been around all these years as an undrafted rookie free agent. Well, coming up in 15 minutes, Hall of Famer Tony Baselli and Jeff Lageman join us here in the booth. But next...
And I say both those guys get their fair share of that. I think that they're earning that respect. Obviously, Josh has been doing it longer.
That's outside linebackers coach Bill Shuey joining me to talk about the pass rush. The Jaguars and Bills coming up at 9:30 Eastern Time in Week 5 from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguars sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguar sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguar sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
Tackle your marketing needs with Kessler Creative. Providing direct mail services for more than a decade, Kessler has a wide range of services from small mailers to large banners and signs. Draft Kessler as your first pick to receive the best targeted mail list. Elevate your business and be on the winning team with Kessler Creative. Kessler Creative, results-driven marketing and proud partner of your Jacksonville Jaguars. Touchdown at Jaguars away games when you fly nonstop from Jacksonville International Airport. Join the Jaguars in New Orleans and Pittsburgh. Watch them win in Houston and Nashville. All the other Jaguars games are just one short connection away. And if airport parking has you stressed, be sure to visit the Jax Airport website before traveling to the terminal. On it, you'll find information about the status of on-airport parking in real time. See if your favorite areas are available or if you need to call an audible. Visit flyjax.com for more information.
Flight by Yingling is the next generation of light beer. For those who don't follow trends, but craft them. Flight by Yingling is 12 ounces of uncompromised refreshment from America's oldest brewery. With only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Don't just raise a glass, raise the bar. Flight by Yingling. Available wherever beer is sold. DG Yingling & Son Incorporated, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
Frank Frangie here. When you want barbecue in Jacksonville, you want Bono's Pit Barbecue. You can find Bono's locations all around town and on game day at Everbank Stadium because Bono's is the official barbecue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over 70 years of authentic Southern Pit Barbecue. We are the local barbecue joint in BBQval for generations of people in Jacksonville. Go to bonosbarbecue.com to learn more or call 904-880-8310 today. And remember, if you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
What makes that famous call?
Dinner's ready.
Even better? It's cooking a great meal with natural gas, enjoying faster cooking times and precise temperature control. And now getting a valuable cash rebate up to $300 when you install an energy-efficient natural gas range or cooktop.
Anyone want seconds?
When you show your home love with natural gas, it loves you right back. To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
And welcome back. The Publix Tailgate Show, hour number 1, continues from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London and the Hyundai Studios in Jacksonville. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Time now for our weekly commentary from Rick Ballou.
Take some shots. That's what the Jags are going to have to do later this morning
if they're going to knock off Buffalo in London. Now, that's against the norm. I'm typically one of those who says run it, stop the run. I mean, if you can run, everything falls into place, right? Your defense gets more of an opportunity to rest. You take the clock with you, and that is always a huge advantage when you get deeper into a football game. Not today, though. They're going to have to take some chances and throw the football downfield. Their best corner, Trey White, out with an Achilles. Christian Benford, their other corner, he's got a shoulder. He'll be a game-time decision. They do get back one of their two very talented safeties in Jordan Poyer. He was unable to give it a go last week against Miami. So if Jacksonville can pass protect, and with all the attention on the return of Cam Robinson and what the offensive line frankly has not done so far this year, if they can just give Trevor Lawrence an extra, let's say 0.2 of a second, deep balls today, take some chances to knock off Buffalo. All right, here's the most important thing for me. I think Buffalo wins. How will Jacksonville react? Will they take the hangover with them like they did after they left it all out on the field against Kansas City? Their loss to Houston was just awful. They're a better team than Houston. They tried, they gave it their all against Kansas City, but it carried over. And that doesn't always happen in the NFL. We see much more of that in the college game. Will Jacksonville, if they don't get it done, take that same approach with Indianapolis visiting in a week? This is the only division in the AFC, or make it the entire NFL, where there's not a team with a losing record. That's correct. The AFC South, all 4 teams with a record of 2 apiece. One of those is going to go to 3 wins today when Indy takes on Tennessee. Also, Houston traveling to Atlanta. Jaguar fans, you saw the Falcons a week ago. A very winnable game there for the Texans. So you could have 2 teams with 3 wins, and that would be a game up over Jacksonville if they do surrender later on to Buffalo. So, want to look for some better things, including third down and just being more of a consistent offensive football team. But for me, the most important part of this, if you do lose today, don't take it with you, where you lose a week from Sunday as well.
Good point. You always talk about not letting the opponent beat you twice. It seemed like maybe the Jaguars let the Chiefs get them the next week. Can't let the Bills do that today. The Jaguars, of course, want to come out with a victory, and if they're going to do it, they're going to have to be really good at getting to Josh Allen. Got to put some pressure on him today, and not just pressure, but smart pressure. And that pass rush has been pretty good all season, though it wasn't there in Week 3 against Houston. Josh Allen is off, of course, to a historic start with 6 sacks in his first 4 games, the most ever through 4 games for a Jaguars pass rusher. Trayvon Walker has 2 sacks in 4 games. He only had 3.5 in 17 last season. There's some reason to believe that he's starting to bring his game up to that level. Even Kayvon Chaison's gotten into the act with a sack. I asked outside linebackers coach Bill Shuey why it's been better, and then what it takes to keep improving this week against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And as I mentioned, it's got to be smart football. You cannot just run past this guy and expect that it's going to be effective. You got to have your head on straight.
I think it comes down to effort, and that's the one thing guys are focused on in the game is that trying to be relentless to the quarterback, working together, between the coaching staff and the players. We've been spending a lot of time together collectively, talking it, walking it, and we did that last year. We probably put it up a couple notches this year in terms of doing that. It's definitely been a focused effort to do it. And then, just looking at the small things, like each day we're out here, individual period, and then growing it from individual to a walkthrough period, just trying to be consistent. Like even in a walkthrough period, I'm looking at things. I'm trying to coach guys up on some small things because, one thing we talk about in the pass rush is, you're looking at tenths of seconds making the difference. Josh is sacking that game right there. Another tenth, that ball might be out. So those are the small things that we're really focused on. Small little improvements to fundamentals can save just a few precious tenths of seconds.
Josh told me the other day that his message, his motto, his motive this year is to finish. I think he was 4th in the NFL in quarterback pressures last year, but only 7 sacks. Do you see that finish playing out?
Yeah, so it was one of the things when I first got here and watched the film with Josh and just talked to him. We talked about the end of the rush, because the one thing you saw, or I went through his whole career and looked at some of his pressures, all of his sacks, those type of things, and see where he's had success, things he did well, things that I thought that he had the tools for that maybe he could improve on. And when it gets to the finish, I think it was collective group. Again, we talk about the rushing coverage working together, the front four rushing as one, 5 rushing as one, that whole premise. But when you think about your one-on-ones and those individual parts, we try to focus on the finish, and you look at where can you do that in practice, because you can't do that in team settings because you have a halo around the quarterback. So you're looking at individual period, you're looking at your one-on-one rushes. When you get one-on-ones where you're really focused on not just winning the rush, but winning the finish of the rush.
Tell me about Trayvon Walker's progress. He's obviously got a lot of attention on him, but what do you see from the young man and what he's doing in his second year?
Well, I see a solid work ethic, and I see him trying to grow as a leader with the help of young men like Josh. Yes, you do. And, we work on him focusing on his day-to-day. It's really one day at a time. We just talked about, just yesterday we were talking about, all right, the first quarter of the season basically is over. In the old schedule, 16 games, you threw 4. So I always try to, with young players in particular, but really everybody, we try to break that season up into quarters. So if you know, and then later you'll look at it in totality. But let's look at one quarter at a time. All right, so the first quarter, your goals were X. Your production was this, from an goals and an improvement standpoint. What'd you get to? All right, now let's look at the next quarter. We're going into the second quarter of the season. All right, let's refocus your goals. What did you do well? Obviously, you always want to take the strengths and make them stronger. But what area do you think is going to give you your biggest jump in production over the next 4 games? And so we did that with everybody. With Trayvon, we got a couple things we want to focus on and see if we can get his production up a little bit more. And, I look forward to seeing how he deals with that on a day-to-day basis.
Do you see the protection sliding to Josh, giving more opportunities to a guy like Trayvon? Or do you see the protection sliding towards Trayvon and giving more opportunities to Josh? Do you see that hand in glove of the two guys together?
Well, the one thing we see here, and I think Mike does a good job, and Buck, and we do it collectively as a staff, is trying to do certain things front-wise, to do some things with slides and that. The other thing you see is the chippers, the thumpers, the guys on the edge of the pocket. And I say both those guys get their fair share of that. I think that they're earning that respect. Obviously, Josh has been doing it longer from that standpoint. But if you watch it, as I watched the film, it's not like people are paying attention to Trayvon also, and he's got to learn how to deal with that. A lot of the veteran guys that I've been around, they knew that was coming. And then they had a plan for it also.
Look at the numbers. 8 sacks between the two guys in the first quarter of the year. You play that out, you take 32 sacks from your 2 starters, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's usually a solid. Like if you play that out, that'd be a solid year in my experience. But we're really focused on this next quarter and seeing where we can get. Obviously when you look at Josh's season, you got 3 sacks, in 2 games. That's solid. Then you have another 2 where there's not any, there aren't any sacks, and there's other things that go into that. But to your point, the pressure rate, we want to make sure that stays consistent because, that helps everybody. That helps the coverage and everything like that. So, these next 4 games, and we're taking it one game at a time, but we look at this next block, we got to try to focus on this next game and see what we can do to affect this quarterback. There's a great quarterback coming in right here. He's very mobile. He, and the O-line's good, but that quarterback makes the O-line even better.
How do you get a big guy like that on the ground?
We got big guys rushing, which helps, but a lot of times you need 2 and 3.
And what are you getting from Caleb on Chase on? He's got a sack on the season. I see 45 flashing. Heck, I saw him flashing back in OTAs. What do you see from him in his 4th season?
I see a veteran guy that understands his role. He's always striving to get more of a role, but he also understands that there's 2 guys that are playing ahead of him at this moment. But he prepares as if he's a starter, and that's a positive for us.
Well, they're going to need him today, and obviously, Mike, they're going to also need to be able to push the pocket from the inside. A guy like Foley Fatukasi, Roy Robertson-Harris, both can help by making Josh Allen the quarterback. Be very aware of where everyone is. Folks, if you're looking for the MVP of the truck game, then look no further than Ford F-150. It's loaded with impressive capability and designed to dominate work, play, and everything in between. The F-150 makes tough look easy, and you can find it at your local Ford dealer, a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, at 7:30 Eastern Time, it's Hour 2 of the Publix Tailgate Show, and I'll be with you from here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with all the sounds and stories of the Jaguars week in London. But before we get to Hour number 2, we've got to finish Hour number 1. And Jeff Lageman and Hall of Famer Tony Baselli will join me here in the booth, high atop this magnificent stadium, which is now known as the home of the NFL in the United Kingdom. And this is where the Ravens and Titans will play next week as well. So lots of NFL action here on the northeast side of London. The Jaguars and Bills will kick off at 9:30 for those of you back in Florida here in Week 5, as you're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguars sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguars sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguars sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Paid for by FDOT.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, we'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community-owned utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
Hello, I'm Dan Fields. If you're in the market for a full-size 8-passenger SUV, look no further than the Defender 130. And with the Defender 90, the 110, and this 130, there's luxury in the right size for everyone. Right, Sammy?
Plus, when you buy or lease from Land Rover Jacksonville, you'll become a member of the Fields Amenities program with complimentary loaners, car washes, our cafe, and much more, all at no charge.
The creamiest, dreamiest, soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy. For refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. The milkshakes and the sundaes and the cones are such a treat. Look out for the ice cream stand, enjoy it from your seat. The creamiest, dreamiest, soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy. For refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. S-O-F-T-E-E, Mr. Softy.
We've spent a lot of time in our homes.
I'm on a Zoom call.
Dinner's ready.
But we've learned that when we love our home, it loves us right back. Now you can keep that love going when you install energy-efficient natural gas appliances and earn up to $1,925 in cash rebates. You'll love endless hot water, faster drying and cooking times, and ongoing savings and comfort. To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
And welcome back to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on the northeast side of London. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Brian Sexton in London, Mike Dempsey back at the Hyundai Studios. Kickoff comes up just after 9:30 Eastern Time. The Jaguars and Bills just over 2 hours away. If you're a Jags fan who's always on the move, they've got the perfect plan for you. With their bundle at the bank, you can purchase tickets to 3 or more games starting at just $58 per game. Get the flexibility you want for your time this fall. Visit jaguars.com/tickets or call 904-633-2000. And now, time for First Rounds on Us.
New York Jets, first-round choice, Jeff Lockerman.
Jacksonville Jaguars have selected tackle Southern California, Tony Baselli.
And Jeff and Tony join me in the booth here above Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Your first time here?
Yeah, it
You've
is.
been here?
It is.
At
Yeah,
all?
mine too.
Different than Wembley. Looks more like an NFL stadium.
Yeah, it does. It's very American stadium feel.
Yeah.
I will say this that's kind of odd. You know, we driving through these neighborhoods of London, and then all of a sudden the bus stops, and I'm like, where are we?
Yeah.
And I look up, and there's a stadium. I'm like, wow. I mean, you know, because most stadiums in America have large parking lots, and everything else, and this does not have that.
And dropping a stadium right in the middle of a neighborhood down in Mandarin or on the south side somewhere. Well, time now for UF Health's Finding Solutions. UF Health delivering compassionate care and world-class outcomes. That's our game plan. And let's start with the quarterback, Josh Allen, and how you take him and create something today that gives you an advantage.
Well, you got to make him make mistakes if possible, because he's known for doing that. And if you look at his performances so far this year and the one loss that they had against the Jets, he had 3 interceptions and a fumble. And since then, he's only had 1 interception in 3 games. I mean, so you've got to find a way to pressure Josh Allen, the quarterback, into making those mistakes if you're going to have a chance as a football team. I believe that, Tony, anyway.
Well, that's how they won 2 years ago, the 9-6 game. They forced 2 interceptions and a fumble, and we won the turnover margin and won the football game. And I think if you look at I agree with Jeff 100%. It's about pressuring Josh Allen, forcing mistakes, make them one-dimensional. They're a pass-first team, but you still don't want them to get the run game going, because then the balance in that spread formation they want to play is just going to kill you. And if you can make them pass-heavy, behind the sticks, and listen, our Josh Allen needs to have a big day. Because Josh is the only –
and Trayvon.
Yeah, but Jeff, I agree with you in principle, but the only guy we have seen so far that consistently is pressuring the quarterback, and then he has 6 sacks, and some people say, oh, some are cheap, some aren't. Whatever. It doesn't matter. He has 6 sacks, and he's the guy. And so he has to have a big day. Yes, I would love Trayvon to flash and show a pass rush. We have not seen that so far this year. I think Roy Robinson-Harris having a big day is also critical, because he's the one guy that has consistently pushed the pocket with his power. And so if he can do that, not allow Josh to step up, let Josh Allen, get there. You got to pressure him. You got to create turnovers. Give this offense a couple extra opportunities, short fields, and that's how you win.
Yeah, and the one concern that I have just about getting the takeaways, Buffalo has more balance than they've had in a while. I mean, they're a top 10 team rushing the football. So it's not all Josh Allen like it's been in years past.
Right? Well, that's why I said Jeff. That's exactly right. You and I are 100% aligned. That's why you have to make them one-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take away the run game.
Sorry, let's get Mike Dempsey involved back at the Hyundai Studios. Mike.
Yeah, good morning, guys, over from Jacksonville. And, kind of flipping it around, obviously the Bills have done a terrific job pressuring opposing quarterbacks this year, but the Jags get Cam Robinson back. How big of an impact is this on the offensive line with the shuffle, anticipating Walker Little moving inside to left guard?
Well, Mike, I hope it's a big one. Now, Cam did not have a great preseason at left tackle. Now, the question is, was he not fully focused, knowing he's going to miss 4 games? But if we can get Cam at the level that he showed last year before he got hurt, and I think Walker Little, he's your best offensive lineman, across the board. And what I saw out of that 3rd preseason game, I know it's just the preseason, he's the most physical, he's the best run blocker, he's the best pass blocker, and I thought he did a really good job at guard in combo blocks, getting up to the next level, being physical. And so you're better with those 2 guys next to you. The big question is what's the rust factor with Cam? Is he going to be consistent? Is it going to be more of last year? Or we can't see what we saw in the preseason, because both Jeff and I, after both the games we saw him play in the preseason, were like, oh my. Like, that's not good enough.
Yeah, the one thing that besides performance that I think he's definitely going to help, talking to some of the coaches just a minute ago on the field, and they said the energy that Cam brings,
without a doubt,
is a big deal. And right now, there's not a lot of swagger with this offense, and there's definitely not a lot of swagger with his offensive line. And they're hoping that Cam's presence and his energy is going to essentially filter through the rest of the offensive line and the rest of the offense. And that's going to be key to watch today. What kind of an energy source can Cam be?
And it's not just protection. Obviously, it's opening holes for Travis Etienne. The Jags were committed to the run, although not super successful last week. But Buffalo, giving up over 118 per game on the ground, is in the bottom half of the NFL. Obviously, you want to play a little bit of keep away today, don't you?
No, Mike, I think you're exactly right. And what's concerning about that is we were not good against the Falcons running the ball. And so running the ball is going to be critical. I think Cam will help that, because the big thing, Jeff, is you better stay on the field. You better convert third downs. And to do that, you got to win on first down, and that run game has to be effective.
Well, and let me say this about Buffalo's defense, okay? And, Mike, what you're talking about, they've got a 20th ranking against the run. Part of the reason for that is that Buffalo plays the highest percentage of nickel snaps of anybody in the National Football League. So they are willing to give up a little bit in the running game to get a little bit more benefit in the passing game. So the challenge against the Buffalo Bills is, can you stick with the running game, okay? Because when Buffalo all of a sudden starts scoring a lot of points, you can't stick to the game plan of running the football. So hopefully they're able to do that. And the one thing also I will add about the Buffalo Bills defense, they are not overly complicated. This is a very simplistic defense. If there was ever a game that Trevor can find a rhythm, I think this would be it, because it's not complicated. The one thing that they do very well, though, they play fast with McDermott as their defensive coordinator.
Oh, Jeff, you talk about Buffalo playing a lot of nickel. One thing they won't have is Tre'Davious White. One guy they won't have is he's on injured reserve. His season is done. So, with a team that plays a lot more zone defense than they do man, is this a game maybe where Calvin Ridley gets back in the flow for the Jags?
I do. I totally agree with you, Mike, and I think he's going to be a big part of the plan, not just because Tre'Davious White is out with the torn Achilles, but you go back to last week's game against the Miami Dolphins, Christian Benford, okay, the other starting cornerback, actually had to leave that game because he was dinged up with a shoulder, okay? And then all of a sudden you have Dane Jackson that comes into the ball game, and then Tre'Davious White gets hurt. So Christian Benford has to come back into the game, which the Buffalo Bills weren't planning on him coming back into the ball game. So, yes, they're light because Tre'Davious White is gone, and he was a leader, a great football player, but then also their other starting corner is banged up as well. So I think you're totally right. I think this is a big game for Calvin Ridley, and I think they're going to be willing to take some shots deep.
Yeah, that's great. I agree with everything you guys just said. You better protect, because that Buffalo front four can rush the passer.
You think Vaughn's going to play?
And the unknown is, how many snaps does Vaughn get?
I think he's going to play.
I think he's going to play too. Everything he said this week, and I think he's playing. They can rush the passer.
Can Anton Harrison block Von Miller?
You got to help him. I mean, you got to help him.
Even with the guy coming back from an injury like Von Miller.
Let me ask you. You going to roll the dice on that?
I'd put a running back
helmet
in his ribs.
Because you can have all the matchups you want in the secondary. If Trevor's getting hit in the face and can't operate and can't find the open guy, it doesn't matter.
The interesting thing about Von Miller is, I remember a game in Jacksonville in 2018 when he was with Denver, and he did nothing. And I'm looking at the stats, and nothing. Then
Until he had to.
The Jags are driving across midfield with a chance to kick a game-tying field goal. And
sack.
It was a tackle for no gain on the run, and then sack, then knocked the ball out of Bortles' hands, and boom, boom, boom. 3 plays was all he made. But it's all he needed.
123 and a half career sacks, and so many of them in a timely way.
The guy knows how to rush the passer.
So make sure in critical moments you're helping Anton Harrison at the very least. Jeff, Tony, thanks so much, fellas. Appreciate it. Have a good broadcast later today. And up next, the second hour of the Publix Tailgate Show. Top stories coming up. Jaguars and Bills at 9:30 Eastern. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguars sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguar sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguar sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
Hey Jags Nation, it's Andre Sisco, safety of your Jacksonville Jaguars, here to talk to you about Lou Ray Peanut Company. Lou Ray is bringing something to the market that has never been done before, microwavable boiled peanuts. Whether you like salty or a peppery Cajun kick, they've got you covered. Now, thanks to them, y'all can enjoy boiled peanuts at the bank while you watch me and the rest of the team tear it up on the field. Can't make the game? No sweat. Find a bag at a store nearest to you by heading to LouRayPeanut.com/find us. Go nuts, go Jags, and as always, Duval.
Mr. Chubby's Wings is a whole lot more than just wings. Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Swing by Mr. Chubby's and indulge in the biggest and best wings in town, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow sports fans. With plenty of game day specials and locations on the West Side, Fleming Island, Ponte Vedra Beach, and new this season, Everbank Stadium, they're here for all your game day needs. Mr. Chubby's Wings is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game.
You say there's nothing quite like the feel of the open road when you ride a motorcycle. You know it takes concentration, knowledge, and skills beyond those required to drive a car. Ride Smart Florida would like to take this opportunity to remind you to enjoy the road, but to always ride smart. S-M-A-R-T. Say no to drinking and riding. Make yourself more visible to motorists. Always wear your helmet. Ride in control. Train regularly and get endorsed. Visit RideSmartFlorida.com for more details. Do you ride smart? This message is provided by the Florida Department of Transportation.
Unlock your potential at the University of North Florida. A top public university with more than 100 majors, UNF is number one among state schools with the highest percentage of graduates employed in Florida. Affordable tuition, programs in high-demand fields, and faculty who care. Swoop into your future at UNF. Visit unf.edu to learn more.
Headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, CSI Companies partners with leading organizations across the country to deliver workforce solutions. As a proud sponsor of your Jacksonville Jaguars, CSI crafts personalized operations to fuel the success of businesses, both big and small. Whether it's finding the right talent for a job or seamlessly managing a project from start to finish, CSI has over 3 decades of experience in getting the job done. This is your Workforce Solutions reimagined. Visit CSICompanies.com.
The Publix Tailgate Show continues right now.
And welcome to hour number 2 of the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. We're 2 hours away from kickoff at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium here in London. Brian Sexton with you on site. Mike Dempsey, he's back in the Hyundai Studios. Kickoff set for 2:30 London time. Of course, that's 9:30 back in Jacksonville. And a very early morning for you, Mike Dempsey. How are things back in Jacksonville at this moment?
A little chilly, for...
Really?
Well, the way it's been going, it's in the, right now, it's pretty, I'd say it's probably around, it's 60-something. It's going to get into the high 70s today. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's beautiful.
Well, you are the best in the business because you just set me up perfectly with game day weather. Brought to you by the St. John's River Water Management District. Florida's water, it's worth saving, as you just heard from Mike, the story back in Jacksonville. Here, north and east of London, it is 71 degrees. The temperature expected to reach upwards of 75 today. The sun is out. The field is half covered in the sun right now, and there is a pretty heavy cloud cover. No expectation of rain. It should be a beautiful day here in London. Time for some top stories on the day. And we'll start with Josh Allen. Doug Peterson obviously understands the challenge for his football team today. The quarterback whisperer knows what kind of player Josh Allen is.
Obviously one of the top quarterbacks in the AFC, top quarterback in this league. He's big and physical. He can run. It takes last time I faced him, I think, was in 2019. And it's a challenge to get him on the ground when you can. But he's got a big arm. Can't fall asleep on the receivers and his ability to extend plays, and he does a nice job of finding his targets.
And coming off the game, Brian, with a perfect quarterback rating on top of that. 5 touchdowns produced, 4 through the air, 1 on the ground. He's as dangerous as any quarterback in the league at this moment.
He also is a guy who has 85 turnovers since he came into the league in 2018. Now, not many this season, to be sure, but he is a guy, as the Jets will attest to, who will give the ball up, and that's a key for the Jaguars today, wouldn't you say?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, that's how the Jets beat him, that 3 interceptions in week 1. And he does have that in him, but generally to get that out of him, you've got to pressure him. And, if our Josh Allen has the kind of performance that he did the first time that he met Buffalo, or at least under the two Josh Allens head-to-head a couple of years ago where he had the sack, he had the interception, the fumble recovery. We can get that kind of performance out of him. Maybe we can force the Bills' Josh Allen into some of these mistakes, but it's going to take some pressure. If you let him have time back there, he'll pick you apart.
All right, a couple numbers that stand out. One for the Bills, they are 51% on third down. 51%. The Jaguars, conversely, just 31%. How about the red zone? The Bills have been in the red zone 19 times this year. They've got 13 touchdowns and 5 field goals. The Jaguars, only 9 trips to the red zone, only 4 touchdowns and 3 field goals. Trevor Lawrence took the podium earlier this week after practice out at Hanbury Manor and was asked about getting the offense right.
It's something we've talked about for a long time now is being better to start games. So that's something we've definitely emphasized, and I just think it's something different kind of every week of why we're not able to convert a third down to keep the ball, or maybe we get across the 50 and then we get a short fourth down and we go for it and turn it over on downs. I think there's different things that go into it, but like I said, execution in critical situations, third down, we all have to be on the same page. We got to execute, we got to communicate, whether that's protections, whether that's certain routes or getting to the right play from my standpoint, or just making the play, making an accurate throw and catching the ball. There's all those things have hit us at the wrong time on those situations, and I think it all just comes back to starting the game fast and really executing every snap to start the game. Don't wait until you're 2-3 drives in to start doing that. So just emphasizing that.
It got to be better, Brian. There's no question about it. And I think we might see the Jags be ultra aggressive on fourth down today if their third down woes continue. And knowing that you likely are going to have to match scores with Buffalo, I just can't see anything approaching the 9-6 win they got 2 years ago. I don't think they're going to be able to win that way and hold the Bills down the way they're firing on all cylinders right now. So if you've got that kind of pressure where you know the other team's probably going to put up some points, I think the Jags are going to be very aggressive today on offense.
They're going to have to be. If you recall, since that loss in New York, the Bills have scored 38, 37, and 48 points. 41 points they are scoring, and their defense is complementing that by only allowing 8. You're right. You've got to score points today. And Press Taylor likes where the offense is after the performance last week against the Falcons at Wembley Stadium. He was asked about where they're at mentally and if things are starting to come together.
Yeah, it feels like we're starting to string things together. We really just want to be efficient. We want to be efficient and explosive. That's kind of one of our commandments that we talk about a lot as an offense. We've started to gain some traction in being efficient. We're still working to be explosive at certain times or when we need to be.
Yeah, well, look, they're getting better, Brian, but the offense only put up 16 last week, right? Got a defensive touchdown, so you had 16. You had 17 the week before. You only had 7 against Kansas City. So while they're showing a few more signs of improvement, I think it's going to have to be by leaps and bounds to stay in this game today.
Yeah, and the running game's going to have to be a big part of it, which it wasn't last week at Wembley. You got to slow down that pass rush so that when Trevor does drop to throw, the Bills have to at least guess, and they can't pin their ears back. They lead the NFL with 16 sacks, and they're tied for the league lead with 18 interceptions. It is a formidable task today to get things right. The Jaguars had all week out at Hanbury Manor, north of us here on the northeast side of London, to work on that and to work together. And, of course, that's what the Jaguars hoped when they left Jacksonville, that this time together would be almost like training camp. And Foye Oluokun, the veteran middle linebacker, had an observation about their time together.
Definitely some value in everybody being here as a team. Definitely had a couple player meetings and stuff, understanding just how blessed we are to be here and be able to come together, playing for the brothers and stuff. It's been cool. Very cool experience out here.
Look, I hope there is an advantage to it, Brian. We don't know how the Bills are going to react, right? A late week arrival into London where the Jags, not only are they there and they're settled in, they're coming off a win. So they're feeling really good about themselves. They're feeling comfortable. Hopefully that little bit gives them an edge in what may be a close Jaguar victory.
All right, thanks, Mike. Bootleggers, get ready. Luke Combs is bringing 2 nights of the Growing Up and Getting Old tour to Everbank Stadium, May 3rd and 4th, 2024, with different special guests each night. Tickets are on sale now. Visit everbankstadium.com. Jaguars reporter Kai Stevens joins me now in the broadcast booth here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well.
How has your week been?
It's been good. I think we're all excited to go home later today, hopefully after a win.
Because it's been a week where we've been in the city, the team's been outside of the city, so we've been going back and forth, a lot of travel. They have set up a really good setup for the players this week to practice. It's a different facility than they've been at the last couple of years. That was at the Grove. We were at Hanbury Manor this year. Hanbury Manor.
Hanbury. You have to get that. You got to get the accent exactly right.
Hanbury Manor. And they had a great setup. It was wonderful. The press conferences were in greenhouses, beautiful landscaping, but nice to be home soon.
So when you look at this football team and you spend a lot of time out at Hanbury Manor, do you get the sense, like Foye Aluakan talked about, that the time together was beneficial? Or did you get the sense that guys would have rather been at home in their own beds at night?
I think it was beneficial. They had to do it either way, so I think there was some understanding of that, and it was definitely better because they won the first game. If they had lost that first game, I don't know what this week would have looked like. Winning certainly helps a lot of things, and it helped them get to a point where I think I described that first touchdown from Calvin as kind of like a breath of fresh air for everybody on the team to kind of let some of the stress go from the earlier 2 weeks. And it felt like the win was that as well, because then they could prepare in a week where it wasn't coming off a loss, asking lots of questions. Yes, there are still questions about this team, but they did good things as well. So it was a little bit easier for them to practice and I would assume work on and move forward than it has been the last couple of weeks.
You got to spend some time with Roy Robertson Harris in an unusual setting this
did.
week that folks will get to see next week as part of our programming. I personally, when I heard you were doing this, I thought, that'll be interesting to see. Tell us about it.
So we settled down. We do our off-the-field segment where we try to talk a little bit non-football things as well, just to get to know these guys because we have such great players on this team, and they're so interesting. They have a lot of off-field interests. So Roy Robertson Harris is one of those people. And we had a nice afternoon tea with Mr. D. Lyman himself, and it was interesting. I was like, oh, this will be funny because big man, little teacups. But he already had his tea preference picked out. He's like, I need jasmine tea and honey. He already knew everything he wanted to do. I was like, of course you already know how to do English afternoon tea.
Roy Robertson Harris.
Yes, that man.
Who, by the way, is completely different on the field than he is off. On the field, you want to be nowhere near him. Off the field, he is delightful.
He's one of my favorite Jaguars if we were to have favorites, and it's just funny to see his game face, so to speak, is frightening, but he is just wonderful off the field, and he switches it on and off for sure.
Great to have you in London today.
Thanks.
Look
Good to
forward
see
seeing
you.
on the plane ride home
Absolutely.
tonight.
We'll see you tonight.
That is Kai Stevens. Well, we're about 15 minutes away from inactives, folks, but coming up next, we'll hear from the commissioner of the NFL. Roger Goodell is with JP Shadrick down on the field. Kickoff 2:30 in London, 9:30 in Jacksonville. The Jaguars and Bills are coming up from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguars sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguar sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguar sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
The kick is up. It's good!
Score winning sub deals this Jaguars regular season at Firehouse Subs. Get 2 medium subs for just $10 after any game when the Jaguars kick a field goal of 40 yards or more. It's a bold deal for the bold city. Sign up at firehouseSubs.com/fieldgoalsforfirehouse for offer details and to automatically receive this offer when you use your Firehouse Subs rewards account. Redeemable only at participating Jacksonville and Orlando area restaurants. Only available on the Firehouse Subs app and online ordering. Unlock your potential at the University of North Florida. A top public university with more than 100 majors, UNF is number 1 among state schools with the highest percentage of graduates employed in Florida. Affordable tuition, programs in high-demand fields, and faculty who care. Swoop into your future at UNF. Visit unf.edu to learn more.
Want to be up close and personal with the Jaguars as they take the field? Here's your chance to be in the shadows, outside the Jaguars locker room, now called the Vault. Enter today at jaguars.com/shadows. One winner and a guest for every home game at Everbank Stadium. No purchase to enter or win, must be 18 or older and a legal resident of Florida or Georgia. Promotion period 9/5/23 through 12/15/23. For official rules and complete details, visit jaguars.com. Sponsored by Jacksonville Jaguars, LLC.
Who will your child grow up to be? Well, that depends on all of us.
That's why, along with our groundbreaking medical care, Nemours Children's Health supports programs that address issues like food insecurity and the resources essential to learning. It's all part of creating a healthier future for all children, so they can grow up to be whoever they want to be. Nemours Children's Health, well beyond medicine.
Nothing kicks off your game better than a handful of Georgia peanuts. Power-packed with protein, essential nutrients, and great taste, Georgia peanuts are the MVP for affordability, sustainability, and nutrition. To score life's touchdowns with recipes and fun facts, check out GAPeanuts.com. The perfectly powerful peanut is brought to you by the family farmers of the Georgia Peanut Commission.
Peanuts! Get your peanuts!
Welcome back to the Publix Tailgate Show from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The Bills and Jaguars coming up 2:30 London, 9:30 Jacksonville. Part of the international series means the commissioner makes a visit to London, and he's on the sidelines with our very own JP Shadrick right now. JP.
All right, Brian, thank you very much. On about the 40-yard line here at Spurs. Beautiful facility now. Let's go back, though, to the bold decision from Jaguars owner Shad Khan back in 2012 to begin playing a game a year here in London. That has continued to grow. How has that helped the NFL stake its claim here in the UK?
Well, Shad's commitment made a big difference, I think, here in London, but as well with his partners, the other 31 clubs, because they saw his commitment to do this and his belief that this could be good, not just for the NFL and the Jaguars in London, but also for his own community in Jacksonville, and I think that's proven out to be really true.
It's now 5 European games, 3 here in London, of course, 2 in Germany. Going out like crazy. I mean, it goes quickly. What's the next step here in the UK especially, but in Europe, the strategy overall for the NFL?
Well, to continue to expand, we want to build on that success. We want to prove that we are a global sports property. We're looking at Spain or Brazil for next year to add to the list. But we won't leave these markets either. We've invested a great deal on this. The fan is extraordinary, as well as in Germany. And so we want to continue to build and play more games, and we'll see where that goes.
Commissioner Roger Goodell with us from the National Football League. You were on hand Thursday. The Jaguars launched the Union Jacks Foundation. It shows the commitment the Jaguars have here in the UK and growing sport in schools, everything that comes with that. It's a great step for the Jaguars and for NFL in the UK, right?
It really is, and I think it goes to that commitment of Shad and the Jaguars. It's not just to come here and play a game. They want to be part of the community. They want to make an impact on the community. They want to invest in the community. And that makes a difference to whether it's the public leadership, the private leadership, or our fans here to see the Jaguars giving back.
All right, finally, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, part of the NFL international future, of course, here. But at some point, there's a football game, too. There's all this pomp and circumstance and pub parties and events and things. But, hey, we've got 2 great quarterbacks today, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, and it's a showcase for these fans in the UK.
It really is. We've never been more excited about the game of football. It starts with the game, and it starts with the competitiveness. It starts with the quality of the players, and as you say, the great young players, including the great young quarterbacks, the 2 of which are on stage today. But there's so many great players in this league, and on and off the field. But the competitiveness of our league, I think we're now 50% of our games have been within 1 score in the 4th quarter, and the comebacks have been unbelievable. So the game has never been better. We want to now continue to just increase the platform, and that's fun for our fans.
Could have quite a game today, right? What do you think we're going to see today?
Well, I have a feeling they're going to be throwing the ball around a little bit, so I assume there'll be a little high scoring, but you never know, and you never know what you come into. But, these 2, Josh and Trevor, are really extraordinary players, so I assume that the scoreboard will be moving quickly today.
The last time these teams met, it was 9-6. I don't think we're going to see that today, right?
I don't either, but, I probably wouldn't have thought it then either. So it's just, I think it's the game today, and, I think these teams know how to prepare, great coaching, and they know how to prepare, particularly when the circumstances are different, like playing here in London.
Commissioner, thank you for the time. Congratulations on the success, and let's keep it going.
Well, we'll wait until these are over, but thank you. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. That's Commissioner Roger Goodell. Let's go back upstairs, Brian.
All right, thanks so much, JP. Appreciate hearing from Commissioner Goodell, and you can hear the full conversation on the official Jaguars Podcast Network, a free subscription on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. It's also available on Jaguars.com. Just click the podcast tab at the top of the home page. And now, let's go back to the Hyundai Studios at Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville and go around the National Football League with Mike Dempsey.
All right, thank you, Brian. This week, the Indianapolis Colts and running back Jonathan Taylor agreed to terms on a 3-year, $42 million contract extension that'll include $26.5 million in guaranteed money for Taylor, who had missed the first 4 games of the season on the physically unable to perform list, was publicly not happy with his contract situation in the last year of his deal there. His extension now makes him the 3rd highest paid running back in the NFL on a per-year average of $14 million. Only the 49ers' Christian McCaffrey getting $16 million and the Saints' Alvin Kamara at $15 will earn more per season. And the new deal, of course, comes now with Taylor activated for the first time this year, so he'll make his debut against the Tennessee Titans today. We'll see what kind of workload he gets. Likewise, we'll see what kind of workload Cooper Kupp gets as he returns off injured reserve for the first time this season to the Rams lineup. They host the Philadelphia Eagles today, where Puka Nacua has become the sensation in Kupp's absence. We'll see how they coexist in the Rams' passing game going forward. The Miami Dolphins' passing game has clicked on most cylinders this year and added another piece this week, acquiring wide receiver Chase Claypool from Chicago for a swap of late-round picks in 2025. The Bears had traded for Claypool midway through last season, sending Pittsburgh their 2nd-round pick in this year's draft, which turned out to be the 32nd overall selection. Claypool, for the Bears' efforts, only had 18 catches for 191 yards and 1 touchdown in his time with Chicago, and was most recently made a healthy scratch over the last couple of weeks, and not content with his situation there. Obviously, the Bears hoping for addition by subtraction. Meanwhile, another trade this week, the San Francisco 49ers acquiring pass rusher Randy Gregory from the Denver Broncos in exchange for late-round picks in next year's draft. The Broncos were reportedly on the verge of releasing Gregory when the Niners decided to take a shot on him. And finally, Brian, legendary Chicago Bears middle linebacker Dick Butkus passed away this Thursday at the age of 80. Butkus drafted 3rd overall out of the University of Illinois in the 1965 NFL draft by his hometown Chicago Bears. In 9 NFL seasons, all with Chicago, Butkus made 8 Pro Bowls, was the first-team All-Pro 5 times, second-team All-Pro a couple of times. In addition to that, won 2 NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards, named to the All-NFL team of the 1960s and 1970s, and, of course, Butkus inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame on his first eligibility ballot in 1979, Brian.
One of the all-time great players at any position, but can you imagine covering those Bears and going into the locker room and having on one side Dick Butkus, and on the other side, Mike Ditka?
Oh, Mike Ditka, Gale Sayers. I mean, it was there's some crazy times. Yeah, Butkus, I think, is the epitome. And I'm not saying he is the toughest guy that ever put on a uniform, but when you think about guys that embody that, right? I mean, I think that, that you have a picture of Dick Butkus in your mind with kind of his breath, the cold breath coming out of his mouth as he's playing in Soldier Field, all taped up and ready to go. And, absolutely not a guy you wanted to see in the hole if you were a running back.
You put those guys on a list, Ray Nitschke of the Green Bay Packers, Chuck Bednarik, he of the gnarled fingers, the center and linebacker, two-way player for the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe Y.A. Tittle, the Giants quarterback with that famous shot of the blood running down his face as he's on his knee. An iconic player, one of those guys that you can imagine in your mind's eye, but you're not surprised when you see him next to the NFL shield as they promote the history of the game and what it means. So let's go back, by the way, to the top of those and talk about Jonathan Taylor. When he and the owner could not get along and he ended up on the PUP list for the first 4 weeks, I thought it was going to be trouble. Then the quarterback starts to play well, right? I mean, he's not playing at an epic level, but he's averaging 5.7 yards per rushing attempt. And last week in their come-from-behind attempt against the Rams, he was putting the ball right on the spot. Do you think that the Ursays gave the money to Taylor because they saw what the quarterback is missing and what he might mean to this season?
Maybe, but, Zach Moss is averaging 93 yards a game on the ground through the first month of the season. Now, I'm not saying he presents the same challenge to a defense, and maybe that's why he was averaging 93 yards a game on the ground, right? You don't go into the game saying we've got to really contain Zach Moss as our top priority. It's a different story with Jonathan Taylor. It may just be, Brian, that the Colts are playing a little bit above expectations here, and if you thought this was going to be a real season of adjustment for Anthony Richardson and you're headed towards a 4-13, something like that, then maybe, you know what, we're not going to pay Taylor this big money. But I think that Irsay sees an opportunity at 2-2 in the division like everybody else, that if he can get Taylor in and get a motivated Taylor to work with Anthony Richardson and make that RPO game devastating. I mean, what do you do when Richardson puts the ball in the stomach of Jonathan Taylor? Do you cover one of the best running backs that we've seen come into the league in the last few years, or do you cover one of the best running quarterbacks currently in the league? It's going to be a dilemma for defensive coordinators and defenses to adjust to as the season goes on.
A couple of other things I want to hit on. You mentioned Randy Gregory leaving Denver and heading out to the West Coast. That defense has so many different elements to it. To see what's possible now with Randy Gregory, boy, talk about the rich getting richer.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't have liked to see a late-round swap with the Jaguars involved in that. I mean, look, Randy Gregory has a better reputation as a pass rusher probably than he has had production. He has been in and out of his various teams' lineups many times over his career. He only has 19.5 career sacks, but he does seem to have that kind of knack, and that's what Kyle Shanahan was looking for. He said, hey, look, their offensive line, we're excited because they've gone up against this guy. They know what he can bring, and it's a very low-risk acquisition. If it doesn't work out, you cut him. There's really nothing hanging over your head, a swap of late-round picks. I mean, heck, the Niners gave up multiple 3 first-rounders to get Trey Lance, and they've overcome that. I don't think they're going to sweat it if they swing and miss on Randy Gregory here.
By the way, at 1-3 and that horrendous 70-point game that the Broncos allowed, do you think they're in selling mode? Because apparently there are stories about wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton being on the trading block. Is this a case where Sean Payton is saying, you know what, wholesale changes if we're going to have a season like this?
Well, I mean, the defense is playing at a historically poor level. Really, one of the worst 4-game starts of any defense that we've ever seen, certainly in the Super Bowl era. And there were plenty of stories this offseason about Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton, the Broncos getting calls on them, and Peyton decided to, I think give Russell Wilson the best chance to succeed early in the season and see if he could get this thing off on the right foot. But if the defense continues to be the sieve that it's been through the first month, I don't think they can do enough offensively to make themselves playoff contenders. So, yeah, like, for instance, if the Jets and Zach Wilson go out there and put a big number up on them today, I think you're going to continue to hear more and more of this as the trade deadline approaches, that the Broncos have a number of players that are probably going to be available.
All right, more from you in about 15 minutes, Mike, with your fantasy forecast. Look forward to hearing from you. Frank Frangie will also be in the broadcast booth in about 15 minutes. But next, Inactives and a pregame huddle-up podcast with Bucky Brooks and John Oehser. We're about an hour and a half away from kickoff in Week 5 for the Jags and Bills from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguars sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguars sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguars sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
Everyone wins when 2 great traditions team up. Yucatan Guacamole is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Our authentic guacamole recipe starts with hand-scooped avocados and ends up in your hands fresh and ready to enjoy. Grab some on game day at the Yucatan Cantina or Yucatan Nacho Carts around the stadium or at local retail stores. Sack your snack game with Yucatan Guacamole.
Prosser here for Lifetime Enclosures and Lifetime Flooring. Football season finally upon us, and with that comes cooler weather. If you've been wanting to upgrade your outdoor living space, You should call the experts at Lifetime Enclosures now. From glass lanais to screened-in enclosures, Lifetime Enclosures and Flooring is the best in the business, so give them a call today. Lifetime Enclosures and Lifetime Flooring. Showroom just off Phillips Highway. Proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hey Jags Nation, it's Andre Sisco, safety of your Jacksonville Jaguars, here to talk to you about Lou Ray Peanut Company. Lou Ray is bringing something to the market that has never been done before, microwavable boiled peanuts. Whether you like salty or a peppery Cajun kick, they've got you covered. Now, thanks to them, y'all can enjoy boiled peanuts at the bank while you watch me and the rest of the team tear it up on the field. Can't make the game? No sweat. Find a bag at a store nearest to you by heading to LouRayPeanut.com/find us. Go nuts, go Jags, and as always, Duval.
Hello, I'm Dan Fields. If you're in the market for a full-size 8-passenger SUV, look no further than the Defender 130. And with the Defender 90, the 110, and this 130, there's luxury in the right size for everyone. Right, Sammy?
Plus, when you buy or lease from Land Rover Jacksonville, you'll become a member of the Fields Amenities Program with complimentary loaners, car washes, our cafe, and much more, all at no charge.
It's game day in Jacksonville, and J-Tech is excited to support our hometown team, the Jaguars. Before kickoff, let's take a moment to talk about an important part of our community, the trades. J-Tech believes that everyone deserves the opportunity to learn valuable skills and build a successful career. They're proud to support the Jaguars and our community by offering high-quality trade education to students of all ages. J-Tech is your hometown trades school. Learn more at jtech.org.
And welcome back to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for more of the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Brian Sexton, pleased to welcome in NFL Network analyst, Jaguars radio field analyst Bucky Brooks, and Jaguars.com senior writer John Ozier for a pregame huddle-up. All right, a lot of different places to start, but I would suppose that you guys want to talk about Cam Robinson's return and Walker Little sliding inside and what it means potentially for this offense as a whole and this group playing together for the first time in the regular season.
Well, first of all, Bucky, what an unbelievable stadium. I've never been here. I don't know. I mean, it's Wembley's great, but this place is gifted. It's outstanding. So, but yeah, Cam Robinson being back, I will be fascinated to see. I think, Bucky, will he play better? Is he more ready than he looked in preseason? Doug publicly wasn't happy with one of his games in preseason. I expect a veteran, though, Bucky, to I think there was probably an element in preseason of a Cam knew when he had to be ready. Mm-hmm. Probably tough to be ready when you know you're not going to play for another 4 or 5 weeks. I expect it to matter because starters matter.
Yes, starters do matter, and as it relates to the offensive line as a whole, you want to put your best 5 out there. So Walker Little moving inside should help this team. This team has struggled at the point of attack, and so the experience that Robinson brings, and also let's be honest, he's been a pretty good player at times throughout his tenure with the Jags. If he plays at a high level, it just solidifies probably the biggest problem area that we've had on the offense. And so if Trevor's protected, if you're able to move bodies off the line of scrimmage and run the football effectively, the Jags offense looks a lot better. It probably gets closer to reaching that potential that we saw in the offseason.
Can it get so simple, Bucky, where they say on Friday, okay, we're going to run X number of times over Cam because he's one of their better run blockers?
Well, yeah, man, because ultimately it's players, not plays. And so if you put together a side that is a dominant side where you're saying Cam Robinson and Walker Little, they can move and push, then the running game goes a little more left-handed, but you're also able to protect Trevor on the backside. It frees up a lot of stuff if the combination comes together like we're hoping it comes together.
Bucky, John and I talked earlier this week about center, right? We spent so much time focused on left guard and left tackle. The center doesn't appear to be playing all that well. Now, Doug Peterson said this week there's no conversation about making a move and putting Shatley in as the center. He's the backup. What do you see from Luke Fortner? What do you need to see today, especially when Jordan Phillips is in the ball game there in front of him? That's a 340-pound man.
Yeah, it is a 340-pound man, but I think we also have to exhibit a little patience. I mean, he's a second-year player still trying to figure out the National Football League, and there are a lot of responsibilities on him. When you're the center, you're setting the protections, and you got to do all the communication stuff while also making sure that the snap gets back to Trevor in the right spot and those things. And sometimes it's hard, depending on who's lined up over top of you, if they're banging on you and moving you around. He is fine. He's solid. But most centers are very dependent upon their neighbors. And so the people beside them to the right and to the left and how good those guys are. And so for a while there was an issue at left guard. And so if the left guard isn't right, it makes it a lot harder for the center to be right because it all works together. The offensive line is different than those perimeter positions. They have to work in unison more so than being independent contractors like you are on the perimeter.
We expect to see Zay Jones back on the field today, fellas. What do you suppose that means for the offense in general and for the quarterback? Third down is such a bugaboo right now for this football team. Only 31%. Comparatively speaking, the Bills coming in at 3-1, they're converting 51% of the time.
Well, I think it's big because if you think about the plays that this team has made this season that felt just sort of like instinctive trust-type plays, the touchdown in the first game to Zay Jones is at the top of the list. That's what he gives you. I don't know how to define it, but Trevor trusts Christian Kirk and Zay Jones and Evan Ingram implicitly after last year. When you took Zay Jones away, you took one of the things that he doesn't have to think about when he drops back away. And he's a big third down guy. Both Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram specifically, said he's probably our most reliable third down guy. And when you take him out, he matters, Bucky.
He does matter, and it's the reliability, the dependability that you like from all of those guys. One of the reasons why Trevor was able to play better last year than his rookie season is because they got him guys that he could trust. They were going to be at the spot when they needed to be there, where they need to be, so he could let the ball go without worry. When you put those guys back in place, and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram and Zay Jones, he knows those three. He's still learning Calvin Ridley, but the trust is there so he can play freer and looser. You want to see Trevor play at his best when he has those veterans around because he knows he can rely on them to do exactly what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, Bucky and Brian, something interesting this week when I was talking to Christian about Zay, sort of unsolicited, the first thing Christian said was, "Where is one?" referring to the wide receiver core, which was really interesting because, sometimes guys say stuff in the locker room, you're like, well, he's just saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a feeling with this receiving core that's sort of real. And when you take one away, and again, I don't think Ridley is quite in that cohesion stuff yet.
Right.
I think he's working to get there. But when you take Zay Jones off the field away from those other two, it is taking one of your legs away.
Completely different conversation I had with Zay on the practice field. Exactly that. He talked about they're almost like an offensive line. They work so well together. You've played the position. Is that common or is that unusual?
I would say that is unusual because it's a position where you can't make your mark on the game without the ball. And so we're talking about four legitimate players who can make an impact when they're out there. And so how do you divvy that up? How do you kind of sacrifice your own individual agenda for the sake of the team? I will say this. One of the things that's always interesting to watch with Zay Jones, he might be the most talkative, the most communicative wide receiver that is on the squad. And so when he didn't play last week, he still is in the huddle on the sideline, still very involved with the offense, very involved with the defense. And so maybe we're discovering maybe he's one of the glue guys on this team that kind of keeps it together. And so even if he's not at full strength, his presence kind of makes everybody feel better because he's the guy that can get everyone lined up and get them all corrected. And because they're so interchangeable in how they perform and how they move around, they need him because it just gives them the ultimate flexibility in terms of how to attack.
He's the Bucky Brooks of the receiving corps.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
You got to have that. Now, listen, one guy who is not interchangeable is Josh Allen, the Jaguars version of Josh Allen today. And he's coming off what I think might be his best game of his career. I know he had 3 sacks on opening day, and I know he had the 8 tackles, sack, interception, fumble recovery against Josh Allen 2 years ago in Jacksonville in that 9-6 win. But, boy, last week gives you some hope that today he can impact the game and just keep it going week to week.
Yeah, you would like to see that. You like to see him be the persistent pressure player off the edge, because what it does is it sets the tables for others to make plays. And that has always been the hope, and you would like to have multiple guys that are able to do it. But as he is able to consistently get to the quarterback and kind of change the timing and the rhythm of the passing game, it helps not only his teammates up front, but it helps the guys in the back end, because you're a much better cornerback when you have consistent pressure up front. And Josh has been able to provide that. And we've seen when he's had an impact on the game, the coverage looks a lot different.
You know, Derek Thomas went to the Hall of Fame posthumously, and he famously had 7 sacks in one game against Seattle, and then they didn't hear from him for 3 weeks.
Right.
Would you take 3 sacks and then 3 weeks without sacks, John, from Josh Allen, or would you rather have one?
Would I take it? I'd rather have the 1-1-1-1-1. For Josh, as long as you get the numbers by the end of the season,
he's gonna
you're
get
in good
paid
shape.
if he keeps
But
it up.
in terms of this team, I think the good news is you can make an argument that he's had 2 of his best 3 career games in the last 4 games. So that's obviously a good sign. I've always said, and I think you guys know where I'm going with it, I've always thought Josh Allen was a much better player than his sacks numbers indicated. For the last 2 years, whenever there was a defensive player hurt, I would look down and said, if there's one guy I hope it's not, it's Josh Allen, because if he's out, you're looking for everything that he does again. I don't worry about him at all having good years, good games. The numbers sometimes don't add up at that position. I think what's remarkable about Josh, too, he's doing it without Devon Hamilton in the lineup. And Devon Hamilton is a guy who got push and enabled the pass rush as a whole to get better late last season. To be getting outside rush without that help, as much help, I think is impressive. I think he has a big day today.
All week long, the conversation has been about smart. Be a smart pass rusher against Josh Allen. What does that mean?
You want to keep him, as we say from North Carolina, you want to keep him in the chicken coop. You want to keep him inside. He makes the magic happen when he escapes the pocket. So the thing that you want to do for him is make him deal from the pocket consistently. All of their big plays typically come when he's improvising, he's running around, they break contain. You don't stay on your plaster rules in the secondary. So make him stay in the pocket. Don't allow him to get outside, and see if he can beat you dealing traditionally from the pocket. Because remember, he's a high turnover guy.
Right.
And so if he is forced to stay in there and he's not able to run around and get crazy and make those big plays, it becomes more problematic for him to consistently move the ball down the field.
Brian, Bucky wears many hats. He's a coach. He's a scout. He's a former player. I want to ask Bucky, the prognosticator, is there any pregame tell that tells you if the Bills' Josh Allen is going to have one of his uh-oh days? And if so, does it feel like – I know it's hard, but that's really his only kryptonite.
Yeah, I mean, his only kryptonite is when he gets outside of himself. But it's hard because he's always been that player.
Right.
You got to remember, this was a lightly recruited guy from a very small town in California, finds his way to JUCO, goes to Wyoming, and he kind of made plays with no one else around him. So that's how he has been. That's how he's reared. So it's hard to sometimes contain that gunslinger in him because that's all he knows. What you're hoping for is bad Josh Allen shows up today,
Sure.
the one that tries to do too much. They've been good of late because he's kind of kept himself playing within the confines of the offense. If that guy shows up, it's going to be very, very difficult. But you can get him off his rhythm by getting to him and hitting him a little bit.
All right, fellas, thanks so much. Hey, here's a quick look at the inactive list for today for the Jaguars. Wide receiver Elijah Cook, offensive tackle Cole Van Lanen. Of course, linebacker Devin Lloyd didn't make the trip. He's still working his way back after surgery on his hand. And Christian Braswell, the young cornerback from Rutgers, all inactive today. Parker Washington would be inactive, but he was just moved to the injured reserve list after suffering the injury last week at Wembley Stadium. All right, much more to come. This is the Publix Tailgate Show from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, and you're listening on Jaguars Radio.
As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguars sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguars sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguars sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
The kick is up. It's good!
Score winning sub deals this Jaguars regular season at Firehouse Subs. Get 2 medium subs for just $10 after any game when the Jaguars kick a field goal of 40 yards or more. It's a bold deal for the bold city. Sign up at firehouseSubs.com/field goals for Firehouse for offer details and to automatically receive this offer when you use your Firehouse Subs rewards account. Redeemable only at participating Jacksonville and Orlando area restaurants. Only available on the Firehouse Subs app and online ordering.
Cancer patients across the Southeast make Baptist MD Anderson Cancer Center in Jacksonville their first choice for treatment. Dr. Jonathan Milquist explains why.
We have so many resources that can help a patient from the very onset, and we just have a degree of unity and cohesive care that is hard to match. It's especially with the tougher cancers that we really excel.
Appointments available now. Call 844-632-2278.
The 2023 season is awesome. Introducing the Four-Legged Fan Club, the Jaguars' official fan club for pets. Presented by Forever Vets Animal Hospital, your furry friend can access exclusive merchandise, events, and sweepstakes throughout the season. Fan club members will be automatically entered to win the Pet of the Game sweepstakes with 2 Jags tickets and sideline passes for pet owners and a chance for your pet to be featured on the video boards as Pet of the Game. Visit Jaguars.com/promotions/Four-Legged Fan Club to sign up.
Since 1916, Duval Motor Company is here to keep you and your vehicle off the sidelines. Their all-star lineup of dealerships provides superior sales, maintenance, and repairs for every make and model with Ford, Honda, Acura, Subaru, Chevrolet, and everything in between. At every Duval location across North Florida, Duval Motor Company always puts service first. In-store, online, or at your front door. Get service first with DuvalMotorCompany.com.
Flight by Yingling is the next generation of light beer. For those who don't follow trends, but craft them. Flight by Yingling is 12 ounces of uncompromised refreshment from America's oldest brewery. With only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Don't just raise a glass, raise the bar. Flight by Yingling. Available wherever beer is sold. DG Yingling & Son Incorporated. Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
And we return to the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Brian Sexton at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Mike Dempsey's back in the Hyundai Studios. The Jaguars and Bills in the second of 2 international games for the Jaguars. First team in NFL history to ever play on consecutive weeks outside the United States. Kickoff comes at 9:30 Eastern Time here at spectacular Tottenham Stadium. Let's go back to the Hyundai Studios at Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville and get a fantasy forecast from Mike Dempsey. Players to watch this week, Mike.
All right, Brian, here are a few storylines we've got our eyes on here, including Cooper Kupp returning after 4 games on injured reserve for the L.A. Rams. In his absence, Puka Nacua became quite the receiving sensation as he had 15 catches in Week 2 alone. Nacua should still be heavily targeted, but Kupp is said to have no restrictions as he enters the lineup today as Matt Stafford's preferred target against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jonathan Taylor will be back in the lineup for the Indianapolis Colts for the first time this season with a new 3-year contract in hand when they take on Tennessee. Got to be a little bit careful here with Taylor. He's not expected to get the full workload. Tennessee is incredibly tough against the run as well, and they've got a capable Zach Moss. So, look, if you're in a pinch and you want to play Taylor kind of as a flex option this week, I think that's reasonable, but don't expect running back 1 numbers out of him in his first game back. In Detroit, they're taking on the winless Carolina Panthers, but the Lions will do it likely without Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, their wide receiver and running back, both listed as doubtful coming into this game. Jameson Williams, however, is going to make his 2023 season debut, expected to be on a snap count as well, as Williams' 6-game suspension was reduced by the NFL for gambling on sports other than football, so he's eligible to return for the first time this season. Meanwhile, out in Denver, the Broncos have stopped no one, so fantasy managers around America have been loading up their lineups anytime anyone is playing against Denver, and that doesn't mean things are going to stop just because it's the New York Jets. Zach Wilson coming off the best game of the season for him, over 300 passing yards against Kansas City. He's a very popular daily fantasy option this week, as is Garrett Wilson, his wide receiver. But the guy that a lot of people are really interested in is Breece Hall. The training wheels are supposedly coming off of the second-year running back. Remember, it was in week 6 or 7 last year. He was on a pace for about 150 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Broncos when he got injured, and he's been working his way back up to full strength. Saquon Barkley working his way back from a high ankle sprain, likely will not play today versus the Miami Dolphins. And one more here, Brian. T. Higgins, questionable with a foot injury. We got word yesterday from Diana Rossini of ESPN that he is not expected to play when the Bengals take on the Arizona Cardinals today.
Not good news for a Bengals team that really is struggling out of the gate. Things are not good in the Queen City. Thanks, Mike. Let's bring in the man who's going to call the game today. Hello, Frank Frangic. How are you?
Brian, I'm doing great. How are you, man?
I'm good.
What a gorgeous stadium, isn't it? Gosh, it's terrific here.
It would be perfect if this window would open.
It would
right?
be better.
It feels a little sterile when you call the game from behind the glass.
Yeah, that's right. But I've not been here before. We've done a lot of games at Wembley, as you know. But boy, this is some beautiful stadium. I will say that.
No doubt. That's the reason why they made this. The NFL got involved in 2015 when they were building this and helped design a stadium that would be more conducive to an NFL game. Wembley, obviously, is for stadiums and soccer matches. And then this is now the official home of the United Kingdom, the NFL in the United Kingdom. So let's talk about a week between games and your thoughts on how the Jaguars might feel today after having the advantage of being here all week and not having to get adjusted quickly like the Bills.
Yeah, you and I were talking about this when we were walking in, Brian, that you don't really know who's going to adjust to what. There's two theories here. One theory is, the one we hope pans out, is that the Jags are now comfortable, that they've now adjusted. They've got their sea legs under them because they've been here long enough. The jet lag or whatever is behind them. This is kind of where they are now. And the Bills are going to have to adjust all that because they just got here, and that's benefit Jaguars. The other side of that is it trying on the Jags because they've been here so long? And are they tired? Are they ready to get home? And so that would be advantage Bills. We really don't know. I will tell you this, being around the Jags, I like where I think they are.
Yeah.
I think this has been a good week. I think it was a good week at Hanbury Manor, just like it was at the Grove. So I like where I think they are, but which one of those paradigms plays out, I don't think we're going to know till the game's played. I really don't.
No, and I also think that if you have an advantage, and remember the Jags talked last week about how it takes time. You arrive Friday, you don't feel all that good. Saturday, it's a light day. By Sunday, they said you're starting to feel better. If there's an advantage for the Jaguars in having been here all week, it could evaporate quickly. In other words, you better strike quickly and use the advantage while you've got it, because this Bills team, especially as good as they are, will catch up quickly.
Yeah, there's no question. And about the Bills, they are really good. But it's interesting how all this affects them. That was a big game for them. When they lost to start the season to the Jets after the injury to Rodgers, everybody was down on them, and they said, well, their window's closed. And then they've blown out 3 teams. But other than the Dolphins, they're not great teams. So are the Bills really good? Did they benefit from playing teams that aren't as great? Will there be a low now after that high last week? There's a lot of emotions here. But I agree with you. The Jags need to start fast. The Jags are still at a point now where there was so much off-season expectation, Brian. And you know this, and then all of a sudden it didn't start so well, so they probably lost a little confidence. I think regained some last week. I still think it's a team, though, that needs to start well. I think you're dead on. The first quarter is very important for the Jaguars in this game.
I think it's interesting. You tell me who's a good team in this league, right? You got the Dolphins, who scored 70 2 weeks ago against the Broncos and then gave up 50 last week to this team. How about the Titans, right? The Titans lose 27-3 to the Cleveland Browns and then go beat the Cincinnati Bengals 27-3. You've got the ability. This Bills team is really good, and they're playing very well. But I don't know that there's a team, maybe outside of San Francisco and Philadelphia, that has proven to be indestructible this far in the season.
And not only that, I totally agree with that. And not only that, the way this league works, man, it starts around Labor Day and it ends on Valentine's Day. It's a long year, man, and things change and people get hurt and people play better in November than they did in September and others don't. And so it's hard to tell. We've only played 4 games. But I think the Bills are pretty good.
Yeah.
I think one thing we do know, if you keep winning by the scores they're winning by, you're probably pretty good. So the Jags know they play a good team today. Look, I think the Jags are good. Brian, you said something to me before the season. We were doing shows up in training camp, and you said, you're the first person I heard say this, and you know the history of this team better than anybody, that this is the golden age of Jaguars football for all the reasons, stadium, but also the quarterback and the coach and all that. I think you're right about that. We weren't wrong about the Jags. The Jags have a good team.
They do.
They sputtered a little bit to start, but they have a good team. We know the Bills have a good team. That's what makes this one so much fun, man. It's the only game going at 9:30 in the morning, and it's two really good football teams.
Well, and Doug Peterson said it this week in one of his appearances with the media. He said, don't forget, this is just the 5th game in the 2nd season for Trevor Lawrence in this offense. And he's had to play with a reshuffled offensive line. He's played without Zay Jones for the last couple of weeks. They've had some things that they've had to work through. But what's promising is that Trevor is confident in where he's at right now. I want to get your thoughts on the offensive line. Cam Robinson returns. Walker Little, who Tony Baselli said not long ago was their best offensive lineman, slides inside. Wow. How do you see that storyline playing out today?
I think it'll be better because my biggest concern, Brian, and I don't have the trained eye that Jeff and Tony do, but watching it, my biggest concern is the offensive line of the whole football team. That's my concern. So I think it'll get better. I think Walker Little's a really good player, and I think Cam Robinson's ready to play. I think he's chomping at the bit to play, man. I think he can. I think 74 can't wait to get out there today.
He brings an attitude.
Yes,
not
he
a little
does.
attitude, not a slight edge.
He brings
a nasty attitude.
That's right. And so I think bringing him out, and he's a veteran player, and I think Walker Little will be very good. I think the line, in my opinion, will be appreciably better. I think Ben Bartz was struggling. I think Tyler Shatley went in there and played better, but I think Ben was having a tough time. If we're being realistic, I think Ben was having a tough time.
Sure.
And
the ACL still slowing him down.
Yeah, he wasn't completely healed probably. I think the left side will be much better. I think Anton Harrison's going to get better every game. I think he's going to continue to climb. Rookies do that, you know that. So I think the line will be. I've been worried about the line, to be honest with you, but I think the line will be much better today.
All right, Frank, have a good broadcast today.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
All right, folks. Up next, Jaguars Radio Network coverage and countdown to kickoff. Top stories of the day: pride of the Jaguars running back Fred Taylor, and the final word before kickoff with Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson. Jaguars and Bills coming up in just over an hour from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. This is the Publix Tailgate Show, and you're listening on Jaguars Radio.